From where I stand as a full-time coach, chipping is one of the areas most average golfers can improve, and they can really lower your score. So in this video, I'm going to show you the most common chipping mistakes I see as a full-time coach that average golfers make. So mistake number one, without doubt, the most common thing that I do see in average golfers is when people take their setup, they actually have their hands low. So you can see from this camera, my hands are low. I have an angle between my left arm and the shaft of the club. Now that's ideal for hitting a pitch shot. We're hitting a chip shot here. Chips go low and run. So by having your hands low, it encourages a bit of wrist movement and action. We really don't want to do that when we chip. So instead, what I like to see, and it is a bit weird at times, I want to see the shaft of the club hidden by my right forearm. So if I take my wrong position, you can see the butt of the club down here. If I take my correct chipping setup, now you can't see the butt of my club. In doing so, the club is resting on the toe. So it's resting up here, and it's about 1.5 inches of contact with the ground. If I have my hands low, I have the full 3 inches of the sole interacting with the ground. That's going to be problematic. The more contact I have with the ground, the more chance I have of hitting a poor shot. So by having my hands a little bit more upright, hide the shaft in that forearm, I'm now in a much better position to do a chipping swing that will take my hands out of the shot. So chipping is a bit like a putt. So if we can start getting those hands a bit higher, rest the club on the toe, you're definitely going to hit much better chip shots. So the second mistake I see a lot of average golfers make when it comes to chipping is they put the ball back in their stance a long way. So they play the ball back in their right foot. So in doing so, that then means that I'm de-lofting my club. I'm going to be hitting down on the ball, because if we think of the swing as a bit of an arc, if I move the ball back in my stance, I'm going to be hitting the ball and I'm almost going to top it, or hitting down on top of the golf ball. So we don't really want to do that. So there's no value in putting your ball back in your stance. The reason people do it is to de-loft the club. So rather than taking out a lofted club and de-lofting it, I think it's a much easier method to take out the right lofted club and use it in a more neutral fashion. So I'm a huge believer in having the ball fairly neutral or in the middle of my stance, because really that's where the bottom of my arc is when I hit a chip shot. And that helps me to make better contact. If I'm back here, it's going to be poor contact pretty much every time. So don't de-loft the club, take out the appropriate loft club, and then start with it in a neutral position, and I know you're going to get better results. And the third common mistake I see, and it's related to the second one, is mainly because people have their ball too far back, they then have the shaft leaning forward too much. So even if you have your ball in the middle of your stance in more neutral, as I prefer it, we don't want to have forward shaft lean, because what we're doing there is we're making the leading edge sharper. There is some bounce on the golf club. We don't want that leading edge digging in. So by having that shaft too far forward, it's going to encourage a swing that lifts up, and you're going to chop down and you might flub it. And generally, when I see people hitting shots that go about that far, that's pretty much what they're doing. So I want to see a more neutral ball position, as I said in point number 2, and I want to see my hands just ever so slightly in front, but not miles in front. And the fourth chipping mistake I see most average golfers make is they use too much loft on the club to chip with. So They generally start, I've got a lob wedge here, so what I typically see is they use too much loft because they think that's what golf pros always use. Then they get the ball back in their stance, as I've said, in point number 2. They get their hands forward, so they're turning their 60 degree into almost a 9-iron, but they're in this weird sort of setup position that isn't going to work. So I think it's much better to take out the 9-iron and set up more neutral, as I've said, and allow the loft of the club to make the ball roll. I always divide chip shots into air time and ground time. Air time is, can I land the ball on my spot? So air time is controlled by my length of swing. If I want it to land on the edge of the green, I'm just thinking about what length of swing I need to pop the ball onto that spot and land there. How much the ball rolls, of course, is dependent on the slope of the green and the speed of the green, but it's also dependent upon the club. If I want it to roll more, I will take a less lofted club. If I want it to roll less, I will take a more lofted club. So if I can do that, I'm going to put the odds more in my favour. So the common link between poor chippers and good chippers is good chippers use an appropriate amount of loft, bad chippers use way too much loft. So remember, it's called a chip and run. People forget the run element. So use the appropriate amount of loft and you're going to get better at chipping. Common mistake number 5 is people are trying to hit the ball in the air. So when they're swinging the golf club, they're trying to lift up. And in doing so, you can see here my left arm is breaking down. I think a much better scenario is to practice with a coin. So I'm going to put a coin down just there, and I'm going to set up with my club here. It's balls in the neutral position, and just as I swing, keeping all of these first factors right, ball neutral, club resting here on the toe, hands neutral, we're just going to try and swing the club, keeping the club low to the ground, and you heard the club striking the coin. If we can get that club striking the coin on a regular basis, we're going to hit a much better chip shot. It's going to be a crisper connection. You're going to hit a lot better chips. So keep the club low, really work hard on that coin drill. It's going to help you to chip better. And the 6th common mistake I see people make when they chip is they have poor rhythm. I see a lot of people hitting chips with a very slow backswing and then they speed up on the way through, or vice versa. What I like to do is think of a metronome swinging at about 52 beats per minute, about the same as a putting stroke. And I would have the metronome going here and I'm just trying to think tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. It's a nice rhythmical swing. I don't want the backswing to be faster or slower and the downswing to be faster or slower. We want to maintain pretty much that nice smooth rhythm. And if we can get that smooth rhythm, we're definitely going to hit better chip shots. We just don't want to get jerky. The smoother, the better it's going to be. And the 7th common mistake that I see most amateur golfers make is they are focusing on the flagstick rather than their landing area. And this is just so easy to catch yourself doing the wrong thing. I've done it myself. We go through, this is a downhill chip, left to right swing. It's pretty fast, even though it's a bit cool and a little bit of damp. I want to land the ball around about here. In fact, I'm going to get a couple of alignment rods. So I want to land the ball just on the edge. So given that it is wet and it's downhill, I don't have to land the ball on the green for this one. If I land it there, it's going to be pretty close. So I do all of the things that I've mentioned so far to hit a good chip shot. I've got a gap wedge here, my 50 degree. I'm just going to try and land the ball between the two alignment sticks, and I'm focusing on landing between those two alignment sticks. So the ball landed exactly where I wanted it to. I didn't aim it far enough left because I didn't factor that in, but you know, it's a reasonable chip shot. I could probably use a 9-iron with the benefit of hindsight because that didn't roll enough. But what a lot of people do is they go through their pre-shot routine and they hit their chip shot, or they're thinking about their swing, they're going through their routine, and then they take their setup, they look at their landing area, and then just before they're ready to hit, their last look is the flagstick. And in doing so, they then hit a chip that lands a lot further than their landing area. And that's when you tend to hit the ball too far. That was good because, as I said before, I chose the wrong club to chip with. But you want to be able to land the ball on your spot. If you can get good at landing the ball on the spot and you misjudge the club, that's okay. You're not going to be that far out, like my first chip. But if I'm trying to land the ball in my landing area here and I land it way beyond it, you're an accident waiting to happen. So we've really got to focus intently on that landing area. So I'm going to choose my 9-iron this time. I'm going to move the ball over to this way. So now I have to aim it a bit more left. So doing all of those things that I said I was doing in order, focus intently on my landing area. One last look at the landing area. And that ball landed right on the edge of the landing area there. The ball swinging down around to the right, and I've hit that into about 3 feet. Pretty good shot. The shot I hit before was just as good. I just chose the wrong club, and therefore it rolled to the right a little bit more. So chipping is a case of doing these basic things right. If you can focus on that, you're definitely going to lower your score. Now, if you want to lower your score, I've got another video right here that I know is going to help you to lower your score.